Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 5th episode of Doing My Best. I can't believe we're at episode 5. We got a good friend here, Michael Shanoudi. Why don't you give us a little background, who you are, what you do, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me, Nick. So, Nick and I go way back to Stonebridge High School, freshman year, freshman
Yeah.
football, and everything like that. So, when Nick told me he was starting a podcast, I was excited to join him and help him out in any way, shape, or form because I do my own podcasting on Four Corners Radio. Download, and subscribe always to Nick's show and my show. Follow us on Instagram as well. So, we've been doing live podcasting at Anchor Bar in Leesburg. So come out and join us every once a month for new sports guests. We talk a little bit about different things. So I've been happy to get on podcasts, and Nick told me he was doing his. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Yeah, man, of course. Very cool. I know. I appreciate you coming out today and taking your time and doing this with me. So tell us a little bit more. I know Four Corners Radio is that the podcast, or there's multiple podcasts in it? So tell us a little bit about like the group itself and all the different podcasts that are a part of Four Corners Radio.
Absolutely. So we started around 5 years ago. And then what we really wanted to be was a place where people did their podcasts. I know there was always recording studios for music and everything like that. So we do have different podcasts under our umbrella. Some of them have stopped. Some of them have kept going. So we do Five Holers, which is a hockey podcast. We have me and Joey's show, Face of the Franchise, that we did for a little bit. Mainly right now, Four Corners is basically just my show, what I do for the live shows in Anchor Bar. We usually use Instagram, YouTube. We kind of stopped doing Spotify and iTunes and everything like that, unless it's something like Big Preview. We're going to do a show about the NFL draft here soon with two of my buddies who are big into the NFL draft. So we're going to put that on iTunes and Spotify and everything. So mainly what we wanted to be was kind of like an umbrella for all these different podcasts at the beginning. And obviously, if anybody needs promotion or anything, that's what we love to do, especially like people starting out. I know your show, of course. I've done stuff with like some fantasy football guys who've reached out. So just being that gauge for podcasting. So that's where Four Corners is right now. And I'm super excited to see where it goes after that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you said you've been doing this for 5 years now. What's your biggest lesson learned over the 5 years?
That being an overnight success really means 10 years or 5 years, stuff like that. So you can't get too bogged down with the idea of like you're going to hit it right away. And you really can't judge yourself after the first couple episodes because you're still learning. Failure is the biggest thing to success. So you have to learn what's working, what's not working. You also have to be kind of open to criticism, like you've talked about with your podcast, like a lot of people giving you ideas and stuff like that.
Yep.
You got to stay true to yourself too. So those are the biggest lessons I've learned from doing it for, man, I can't believe it's 5 years, but of doing all this.
It flies by, right? Even being at the 5th episode, I can't believe it, how fast it all goes.
Exactly. And you just enjoy it. You enjoy the journey and you're just like, man, like I said, 5 years took me to Anchor Bar and to do all these live shows. And I'm just like, man, we'll see where the next 5 years takes me, but that's the biggest lesson. Cool. So,
yeah, I love that. And even when I started doing the podcast, I just got into software development, agile philosophy. I don't know if you know what that is, but the main point of it is MVP, minimum viable product. So, what is the fastest way to getting value out to our clients in the respect of software development? But I even applied it to this podcast where what are the minimum things that I need to have in order to start putting out content, in order to start getting feedback, start getting subscribers and things so that I can get that feedback and change the way I need to in order to continue to grow. So just like you said, that's kind of how I just try to minimize the amount of obstacles and get in front of the camera, start talking to people, start learning things. And even in my 5 episodes, I've learned something from each episode that I continue to take into my life. And I love this learning about this positivity and all this stuff and how other people do it.
Yeah, once you have a passion for something, you'll continue to do it. And that's the biggest thing. And like, look at us now at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. We're like, let's just get on and do it. That's the biggest thing is just being able to do it, put it out there and just say, I did it. That's the biggest thing too.
Yeah, right. And so did you know anything about podcasting, all this technology things that you had to learn, zero before you started? What
Yeah.
got you to pick up something that you had, no prior experience in and take that kind of risk?
It's funny because I guess you can say it started with just like work and everything. I kind of just started listening to podcasting. People have asked for my advice for like certain things about sports because I don't know if you've seen my Instagram.
Mhm.
I've on with like sports and everything. So I was like, okay, like let's just see how this goes. And shout out Jeff Mitchell. He was the one who was doing the music. He understood
Yeah,
audio,
yeah.
understood all these things. He actually helped me a lot with just getting things going in the sense of like understanding the boards, understanding mixing, understanding like
Yeah.
audio editing and stuff like that. So you have to ask for help. That's the number one thing is like I didn't know anything and now I can do audio, I can make things happen. I actually put that on my resumes now that I can do audio editing and video editing. And
Oh,
that's
cool.
the thing. Yeah, you gotta say, hey, I need help. I need to figure this out. Also, YouTube is a great tool, obviously,
Yep.
just you learning those different things. But just having the passion to learn it is the biggest thing too. Is just, hey, I had zero idea. I want to learn. I want to keep learning. I mean, it sucks to start from the beginning, but when you find out you get more and more skillful on it, you continue to grow. So that was the biggest thing.
Yeah. What do you think got you over that initial hump? A lot of people have these grandiose ideas and want to do all these amazing things, like starting a podcast kind of media conglomerate company where you're hosting multiple podcasts and you're doing your own. And you said you didn't have any experience before and you kind of took this risk. What do you think got you over that initial hump?
Yeah, just like thinking about the risks and everything. I was just like, I hate to say it. I was like, I have nothing to lose. I was just like, I'm gonna just continue to grow. I'm gonna continue to do what I need to do. I think the mindset of not not letting myself let failure or let those risks, like you were saying, get into my thought of what it could be if it's a success. And that was
Right.
the big thing is just, hey, if I believe in myself, which I do, and I believe in the product that I'm putting out, I'm believing in people liking what I do, people think I'm funny, people think I have good information or good interviewing skills, then it will take off. That's number one. The risk, there'll always be risks, there'll always be obstacles. It's just what you see at the end of the tunnel. Is it worth going through all that? Like I said, hoopla and stuff like that. I mean, 5 years and I got to a point where I'm kind of content, and then I'm still trying to go higher than that. So it's grueling. It's going to take a lot because of such a saturated market, but you just got
Yeah.
to keep grinding and get over those risks and obstacles. So.
Yeah. The thing I keep thinking about is how much content I consume on a daily basis. And I'm always then looking for new content. I don't go, it's not like The Office where I can go back and watch The Office all 9 seasons over and over again. It's kind of once I watch a YouTube short or I watch a podcast or something, I might go back to a certain point if I wanted to learn something from it. But you, it, we all need new content. So even though it is a saturated market kind of thing,
Yeah.
we all need new content constantly. So people are always hungry for new content, finding new people to follow, new videos to watch. And so we're just going to be those people for them, right?
Exactly. We're going to bring in the new wave right now. So that's going to be
Yeah.
the greatest part.
Yeah. And just, I'm in technology sales, and in the media entertainment industry. So
Right.
reaching out to some of these huge companies like iHeart and stuff, and now learning about how their company operates, who they're partnering with to continue to grow the podcasting realm. They just partnered with LinkedIn. So there's more and more opportunities. Podcasting is growing as a type of media. And I think, I don't know where it's going to go over the next couple of years, especially with all this augmented reality and VR and stuff, being able to do these in person, virtually in person, it will be kind of,
Virtually in-person things.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think will end up being a norm for podcasting.
Absolutely. No, podcasting has grown tremendously. I mean, obviously, as you see, nobody listens to the radio anymore. At least I
Yeah.
don't. That we have CarPlay and whatever Android
Right.
uses. I listen to all my podcasts on long drives. I listen to them at my desk. Like I don't even listen to music that much anymore. I think the gym is the only time I listen to actual music, and then after that, it's just nothing. So
Yeah, for me, I love a good singing along in the car ride.
yeah,
That's kind of like that's one of my places of peace in the world is just like driving in the car, singing to my heart's content, and just driving along, down the
You're doing
road.
it.
I love driving and stuff because all you have to focus on is driving. There's nothing else. There's no other responsibilities. You can't answer the phone and do all these different things. And it kind of is just relaxing that, no responsibility other than just driving forward. Yeah.
You and me both. I'm a big road trip guy. I do the 5 hour, 6 hour drive over a 2 hour flight any day. So
Yeah, me too. 100%. Definitely. Do you still get nervous when you're doing podcasts and stuff? I mean, like I said, I watched your latest episode, I believe latest episode. They're pretty high level executive guys. They're kind of big in their industry. Do you still get nervous?
Oh, of course. Every single time. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be you and me, and I still get nervous. I just
Yeah.
really, when you're doing a live show, you just don't want to say the wrong things. You just want to make sure that you're saying those things correctly. You want to ask the right questions, especially questions people want to hear in the audience and who's ever on the live stream itself. I think also it helps that I've been so blessed that these guys, when I had Cliff Russell and then I had these guys from Loud and United, all of them have been talkative. They've actually given me back and forth and stuff like that. It's those guys that don't give you enough substance when you're asking questions that you're just, how do I do this? Before all the episodes and before all of those things, I do get a little bit of butterflies just because I hope I don't ruin the intro. I hope I introduce them. Once you get over that initial hump, you're just like, let it free flow. It's like talking to a friend and you just, hey, what do you feel about the season? How do you feel about your job? How do you feel about what's coming down the pipeline? And I think that's the biggest thing is, I hate to say it, people love to talk about themselves and their jobs and everything like that. And once you get them going and you start picking apart what they're saying, and not in a bad way, but just piggyback off them, it's just a conversation after that. So
yeah. Have you incorporated any routines that, before you do your podcast? I'm thinking about Travis Kelce, heard only eats Uncrustables before he plays in his games. Do you have any routines and stuff like that?
Usually I just reread all my questions. Like if I have questions, I would do that. I reread them. I do make sure I have a little to eat. I don't eat it too much just because I just don't want anything to go crazy. Not drink too much water. I guess you could say my routine is just, I'm very religious. So I just pray and make sure God's just watching down over me and stuff like that. And then just have a good show. And then off we go. Nothing crazy. I wish I could say I rub a rabbit's foot or I kiss something.
Yeah.
But nothing crazy. But all that, I mean, I just think once I do all those things beforehand, I'm prepared. The nervousness shows that I'm ready. So that's just the biggest thing. So
yeah, that's a great point. Thinking about nervousness is I'm ready.
Yeah.
My dad told me that nerves means that you care. It means that you're passionate. You care about the quality, about how it's going to turn out. And I think at first I looked at other people and thought they didn't care as much because they weren't nervous.
Right.
But it turns into more of, you become confident in your abilities. And so those nerves don't show up as physically anymore. You still have those thoughts in the back of your mind, but they don't make your chest tight anymore, or your voice kind of waver back and forth, because I've gotten through this before. You have that evidence behind you.
Exactly.
Do you feel that same way?
I feel the same exact way. Your dad is correct. Like I guess my mom had the same thing. If you're nervous for a big test, that means you studied hard and you just want to do well. Or if you're nervous to go out and do certain things, you're just ready to go. But if you feel like you weren't prepared, you're not going to be as nervous. But after time of doing it, it's just more of not nervousness that I'm going to F up. It's nervousness like, I want to make sure this is quality. I'm going to make sure this is my best, stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. So with all of this podcasting, you talked a little bit about it, but what is the biggest challenge or the biggest benefit you've gotten from starting your own podcast and having done that now for 5 years?
Biggest accomplishment, obviously, like I said, just working with a business like Anchor Bar, just having them have my back. It's been great. I mean, the owners have been awesome. I can't thank them enough for giving me this opportunity to do all these things. I wish I could say I got the guests myself, but no, they've been plugged in with the community. They've been giving me these guys' names. They've been asking.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. So as long as I'm promoting them and they're promoting me, that's all they want. And I appreciate them. And I think that's the biggest thing. You just need to have that people to believe in you, especially after all that stuff. I guess the biggest challenge, obviously, is just how to keep the content relevant to people so they can keep coming, keep thinking about you, or what can I do next to spark something? Because it does only take one episode or takes one clip to make thing go crazy. And that's why I said overnight success takes 5 years, 10 years. But whenever that clip hits, it's just, that's when you have to build off of it. That's when you become something. I hate to say it. I don't know if you know that guy, I Am Rich. He has a clip out there. He became crazy famous off of TikTok and stuff like that. And that's just how it is. But he's been doing it. He's been doing it for 5-6 years. And now he's a sensation. So that's how you do it. It's just make sure you put that clip out that goes viral. And then once that goes up, you just got to build off of it. So that's the biggest challenge for sure.
Yeah. And the overnight success, I always thought it was like day one overnight success. That's what that means. But it actually means at some point over your career, like you said, something will hit and you will then become an overnight success. But you've been doing it for 5-10 years at that point. But it's just like you said, that one video. It really does take one piece of content to connect with the community and build that audience. And then, like you said, you capitalize on it.
Right? Exactly. And then you just build it. And then you just tell people to share, like everything. And then you go from there and you tag as many people as you can, many businesses, and then you just go from there. So
that's I'm still getting used to the like, subscribe, and share thing at the end. I'm like, I don't see myself as a personality, like a YouTube personality or a content creator. I don't see myself that way. And so even trying to do the intros at the beginning of the podcast, just with me, like, good morning, everyone. I tried to do it so many times, and I don't see myself as like a content creator like that.
No, I didn't think so. I didn't look at myself the same way. And then once you find your groove, you go, you know what I mean? And then you find the way you intro, you find the way that you outro, you find the way that works best for you. And that's just the biggest thing, is like, whatever you're comfortable in, people will gravitate to. Because once you start doing things that's not you, people will know, and it's just like, this guy's just doing it for clicks. You know what I mean? It's not doing it for fun. So
yeah, I'm still trying to keep true to that. If I can positively affect one person, then I've done my job. Then this was all worth it. Get that one message that says, hey, I watched that episode and made a difference in my life. That's all I need. And I need to keep focusing on just that, right? To get those little wins. So tell me about sports. I understand football because I played football, but you go out and you talk about every sport: soccer, football, baseball, tennis. Every sport ends up coming up. How do you keep up with all of this, all of these different sports?
So if you want me to be completely honest, it's because I have 5 TVs in my living room, and that's how I keep up with it. YouTube TV came out with multi-view, so now I watch everything. I hate to also say it's just like, when I was a kid, right? We were in Ashburn. We every sport: basketball, football, soccer, baseball. We all played it together. We'd all did that together, and I was just like gravitated to sports, I guess, and that's how things got in my head. Sports is great. Sports is like something that teaches you lessons that no other thing can teach you. I don't know. I just love sports. That's the thing. Like, even my girlfriend says nowadays, she's like, you watch golf, but you don't golf. And I'm like, I just like golf. I don't understand. Like, I just like golf. I like tennis. I like the whole rivalries. I love listening to storylines. I think it's just a different aspect of everything. Football will always be my number one, but I'll always basketball, hockey, baseball. I just gravitated to sports, and I think that's the biggest thing, is just like how the team aspect and how you have to put yourself behind the team. You're not just an individual. Even in sports that you think are individuals, like golf and tennis and boxing and UFC, they have a whole team behind them. They're putting their whole team on there, basically, and they have to listen to their coaches. They have to listen to their caddies. So I think that's why I gravitated to sports. And like I said, 5 TVs is a hell of a thing to have in your living room. But hey, as long as I can watch all of them, I'm with it. So
I don't know how you have that attention span to keep aligned with all the different sports. Yeah.
My eyes are very good at it. Now I can look at my peripherals a little bit better. I'm just like, oh, I could see that. Sunday football got a little weird because everybody was yelling at every TV, and I was just like, what are you yelling at?
Yeah. That's awesome. I don't keep up with sports as much as I'd like to. And even now with March Madness in full force, when I do watch sports and I get back into it, I love the competition, the underdog story. When Tom Brady was winning all those Super Bowls, and I'm a New York Giants fan, I believe you are as well, right?
Hey,
And
2
so,
rings.
yeah, 2 rings, and so I'll hold on to that for the rest of my life. We beat Tom Brady, one at his peak, undefeated season, and the second time was just the cherry on top. And so I can now fully respect Tom Brady and still be a New York Giants fan because
Exactly.
we beat him twice. There's nothing they can say about it. But yeah, I love the competition. What do you find about sports that you like? Is it the competition aspect? Is it just obviously you get into all the analytics and everything. I mean, you really study the sport more than just watch it.
Yeah, I think I think the debates are really awesome. Like, I know a lot of people don't like the debates that they see on ESPN or FS1 because some of them are cliche or shallow. Like, is Jordan the GOAT? Is LeBron the GOAT? Is Ovi the greatest goal scorer of all time? Stuff like that. But like you said, the analytics and the stats to prove what these debates actually mean is awesome to me. I think that's the biggest thing, is like just having those debates, having those arguments is great. I love an underdog story. Who doesn't? Who doesn't love watching, like, who was it, St. Pete's at last March Madness that went crazy? Or I think it was last year, the only top seed was UConn. And of course they won the whole thing, but good to see like Miami, FAU, San Diego State, like new teams to go to the Final Four and all that stuff. I think that's the biggest thing, is like people don't realize sports is, you can put all these different things, right? You can put like analytics, you could put like the reasons why this team could win. Case in point, the Giants, undefeated Patriots. Why are the Giants showing up? Who cares? Just give them the ring.
Yeah,
you guys beat them, because that's just sports. Is like, in between the lines, in between everything, something will happen that will give you a chance to win, no matter what, no matter who you are, no matter what you are. And I think that's just why I love sports, is because you can put analytics, you can put numbers, you can put what you want to say, but at the end of the day, it's what's going to happen in between those lines. And that's what really grips people, is like, yes, we want to see something. We want to see the Giant go down. We want to see go down to David. And it's just crazy. And it's like, and that's what makes sports awesome, no matter what it is. So
yeah, whatever the script says, right?
Whatever the script says. Hey, NFL script. Hopefully we see Steelers Giants Super Bowl this year. Now.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So going back to, you've always loved sports. You've always loved talking about sports and debating on it. Did you ever think of sports broadcasting as a career, or doing something in sports media, or being, a sports anchor or something?
That's a great question, because I just had this conversation not too long ago. I think when I was a kid, I think the biggest thing I wanted to be was a GM. I think I wanted to be a GM for or something like that for a team. In this mindset, you think you're the best, right? You think you can fix this team. Like, just give me the money that they think they have, and I'll just take care of it. And then quickly started into like, oh shit, I have to go. Like you said, you have to start from all the way to the bottom, all the way to the top. I was like, I don't know if I could be a scout. I don't know if I could go to 25 different colleges and think I know who this guy is and think who he can be and stuff like that. But that was really the path. And then like sports broadcasting, I didn't really think I could do like a play-by-play or color commentating, but like what we're doing now, definitely I could. I feel like I could be on ESPN and be like on NFL Live talking about why certain players go to certain places, or what I think about their moves or stuff like that. I'm not saying, and really the biggest thing is like they try to get hot takey, and I think that's the biggest thing people are doing nowadays, and they're not giving information and they're not giving facts. And I think that was the biggest thing, is like, I want to, if I ever got into that realm, I try to give as much facts as I can at the end of the day. And I think that's where my brain is now. I know there has been a couple of times where I'm like, oh, I could do coaching too, but I was like, I don't know about all that right now. But I think doing this and doing like an FS1 or an ESPN kind of like first take thing would be amazing. That would be a normal thing right now. So
I mean, it's kind of like what you're doing already, right? I'm pretty sure Barstool got started on ESPN that same way. They had a podcast, they had a show they were doing. ESPN picked them up, and now they're doing the real thing. So
Turner Broadcast and all that stuff, and they're churning, and they're like, we're doing all this thing now. They have DraftKings, their own podcast or own YouTube live stuff, and it's just people are watching a guy play golf for 3 days. That's like they're doing it nowadays. And that's what I'm saying is like content now is so different than it was back then because people are like, oh, let me go on NBC, ABC. Now it's all on YouTube. It's all on Twitch and Kick, whatever they have nowadays. So it's awesome.
Yeah, every morning I watch Kid Craddock morning show because I lived in Dallas, and so I used to listen to it on the way to work. And now they stream on Twitch in the morning. I enjoy a video to a podcast. I don't always have to watch the video, but I enjoy having a video on a podcast. So they stream live on Twitch and they do their radio show in the morning, and then when they're playing songs and stuff like on the radio, they'll go back and play old footage from other broadcasts in the past. And even the guy, Kid Craddock, he passed away years ago, but they'll go back and play old clips of him in the studio and stuff. And I feel like I'm more a part of it. It's more intimate. Like I feel like I can really further connect with the people rather than a TV show or something.
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing is like some of these guys are starting the same way you and me started, just doing it with a microphone and this like Skype or Squadcast and stuff like that, and they go from there, and then they get into a studio, and then they get the high price stuff, and they talk about it. It's like you remember the journey, and that's the biggest thing, is like you're intimate because you grew up with the guys that you listen to. I know I've listened to a podcast from beginning to end, so it's like from the start, episode 1 to now, and how they've changed in a good way. Like everything production wise has been, so it's awesome when you feel that way about a podcast or a show.
Yeah, and even as silly as Theo Von's podcasts are, something I learned from his podcast is he's very honest about who he is and the challenges that he's had in his life. And something I learned at the beginning of podcasting, I read a quote that said, podcast is the way to scale intimacy.
Right.
And even a comedy podcast like Theo Von's, it's creating intimacy because he shares about himself. He shares his challenges, the things he's been through, and even his fears and stuff. And that's kind of a reason for doing this podcast, is to just get out and try to talk to people about how they're staying positive, how they're dealing with adversity, and how they're finding hobbies in podcasting and sports like you, and doing something that fulfills you. That I think that's kind of the most important thing, something that I was missing, prior to starting this podcast. Is just like, what can I be doing that fulfills me? And we talked about it in my podcast with Andy. He said the third thing, you got to find a third thing. You have work, you have home, and you need a third thing that fulfills you. And I didn't have that before. And I was like, what? I need to try to figure out what that's going to be in my life.
Right. And you try different things. And you try different things, right? You try different avenues. Like, I mean, podcasting was probably like the fourth thing I tried. Like, I did like, I don't know, like a bunch of things. I was like, oh, I could do this. I could sell different things. I was thinking about selling like memorabilia. I was thinking about doing maybe I was thinking about getting into cars. I've never been in cars in my life.
Yeah.
But I was just like, okay. And then, like you said, you when you find something passionate, you're just like, that's it. That's something is like, this is what I want to do. No matter if I only, like you said, if I touch one person with what I'm saying, then that's the biggest thing. It's like I'm cool with that.
Yeah, love it. So last question before we move on to our next topic.
Yeah.
Anyone alive or dead who you'd want to do a podcast with, and why? Kind of dream person to do a podcast with.
I've always said this, and I think it'd be the funniest thing. It'd be me and Dennis Rodman. I think Dennis Rodman, just because like the dude is so crazy, and it's just like what he's been saying about like his time in the NBA, his time with like what he's like when he went like off the wall crazy, what he's been doing in like the political government stuff. Like you would never think of a guy like him just to be like, it would just be like, I don't know what I would ask him, but I would just be like, yo, I think it'd be one of the funniest things I would ever do in my entire life, and funnest. And I'm just like, let's do it. I was like, if Dennis Rodman, listen, if you hear this somehow, some way,
shout out,
come out to Leesburg, Virginia, at the Anchor Bar. Nick will be there, and we'll interview you, dude. Like that would be my number one guy, honestly.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And he was always a freak athlete too. Through all of these things, one of the best basketball players, of all time, and
Oh, of
through
course.
all of that stuff. It's just
He was
amazing.
he's a Hall of Famer. He has how many rings? Like the dude is
Yeah.
like crazy good, and that's the thing. Like you said, like never judge a book by its cover, but it's crazy.
How do you think somebody like that separates the wild side and the productive athlete side?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think he has the fire to do well. I think that's the biggest thing. He talked about it a couple of times. He's saying like when he played for the Pistons, he was the little brother, so he didn't want to disappoint Isaiah Thomas or Joe Dumars or all those guys, and he was like, I'm going to be the best I can because I came from nothing. Like he came from
Yeah.
literally zero, and he now is this like defensive star, rebounding star, stuff like that. Once he left that Pistons kind of organization, that's when everything unraveled. It's not until he found Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson putting him back into place where he's just like, yeah, this is exactly. He needed structure. I think that was the biggest
Yeah.
thing. To be the best that he wanted to be, he needed structure. Keep the wild side out there, and them saying you need to keep that over there, but keep a little bit so you can be that aggressive star that we know you could be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think I try to do that too. Not to that level of Dennis Rodman. Keep your having fun side kind of separate from work. And
Yeah.
I thought that was what I needed to do for a long time until my last job. But myself being Nick, being
Right.
goofy, silly
Right.
Nick, bringing my personality into my role. I think that was something I was afraid to do. I always thought I had to put on this mask of, okay, now I'm sales Nick, where I'm learning now that bringing in your personality into your job is what makes you, right? And what makes you different from somebody else. That's still something I'm kind of dealing with today, still trying to figure out how to bring my personality into my role in a
Exactly.
professional manner. Yeah.
Dude, not everybody wants to be professional 24/7. And let's be honest, people love joking, people love to kid around. It's just you got to find the fine line of professionalism and goofiness, and then you bring it from there, So
Yeah. And so I know this is probably a hard shift from our light podcast conversation talking about all of the great things you've done and your career so far and a long career ahead of you. But this podcast is about positivity and dealing with adversity.
right.
And one of the reasons I started this podcast is just a lot of people around me have had a negative outlook on the world, and on just the way things are looking today, on literally the economy, the government, the pay, like money and everything. It's just everything's more expensive, and I'm sure every generation feels this way. But it seems like we've been given a hard ticket, and our both of our good friend just took his own life recently, and I just heard last week another one of our good friends from high school in our grade took his own life. So two friends that we both cherished. I know we cherished a ton, and so I wanted to talk about kind of what it's like to be on our side, for people that are dealing with suicidal thoughts and depression, and for them to kind of hear from us how much the people around you really care and how busy life gets sometimes. And we all forget to reach out to our friends, or forget to ask the how's your mental health doing question. But really just wanted to talk about that and how Sam affected our lives in a positive way, and what has it taught us as a result.
I mean, the biggest thing from all this, like obviously, like you want to be there for your buddies, you want to be there for your friends, especially the ones that are closest to you. And a lot of times, I hate, especially for young men like our age and like a little bit younger, a little bit older, we were taught to just like internalize things, and we were taught to like deal with it. Be a man kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's why you see an uptick in our age with this. The biggest thing is just you got to realize, like, when you talk about your problems, you never know who else has the same problems, and you never know who will be there for you. But us as friends, we also need to be there for our friends and reach out to them, be like, you haven't heard from them in a couple of days, or you haven't heard from them in a couple of weeks. Just reach out to them and say, hey, are you doing good? Like, what can I do to help? And a lot of times, you look at it and you're like, really? Like, that's like, I didn't know you were going through this. Really, I didn't know
Yeah,
you
yeah,
were doing that, and because, I mean, like, especially in the case of like Sam, like, I just saw him like not too long ago before, and like
yeah,
I talked, and like he seemed fine, like everything seemed fine, but like, and that's the biggest thing I learned too, is just like, when you reach out and you still talk and you still do these things, I mean, you can't put yourself in that situation because you don't have that feeling. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, and it just sucks because it's like something that you think you can prevent, and you think you're like, am I a shitty friend for not doing anything? Am I a shitty friend for not seeing it? And it's just like, man,
right,
it's like, that was the overwhelming thought that I had after, and I was just, man, it's just, was there something I could have done to stop it, or is there
yeah,
something as a collective we could have done? And it kind of puts you in this mindset, man, and it's really, it angers you too. It's like, man, like, what
yeah,
the fuck, like why them? Like, why did they have, like, what the fuck? And it's just like, sorry for cussing. I don't know if you're
no,
mad, but
it's all
like,
good.
it's like, that's just what I felt. It was just like confusion, anger, all in one. It's just like, damn, man. It's like you
Yeah,
want to be
the
so.
yeah, and the part that confused me was, I was, Sam was a boxer, and he was all,
Yeah,
every time I think of Sam, I was saying this morning to Carly. Every time I think of Sam, he's had a huge smile on his face, like, and he's tall. So like when I think of him, in my mind, I'm still looking up to him, seeing his smiling face. Yeah,
right.
and he was a fighter, and so I always viewed him as this tough, strong guy.
Yeah,
And when I heard, the first question that came to my head is like, what makes me stronger than Sam? Like, why am I still here? I guess is not
yeah,
not that it makes me stronger, because it confuses me. Sam was a strong person. He, always had a positive outlook on things, and we definitely talked about hard things. And we were like best friends freshman year of college, and we were in the same dorms. So we spent like every day together. We were both in singles, so we didn't have any roommates. So we were basically like, each other's roommate. And yeah, I think that's the question that challenges me, is like, what differentiates people, because I saw Sam as this extremely strong and tough person, and to know that he was going through something so difficult that, I didn't know. And I, just like that, just like, it scares me, because sometimes I don't feel like I'm that tough, or as tough as him, or uh, as strong as him.
well, that's the biggest thing, is just like, from what his mom wrote, was like, he had everything. He had like a good job. I mean, he had Danica. He had
Yeah,
he had friends. He had everything. It's just, when you feel that overwhelming feeling of like, I'm laying people down, or I'm not good enough, or why do I feel this way? Sometimes those thoughts get stronger and stronger and stronger if you're not careful. And I think, like we said, like you said, am I stronger than Sam? I mean, Sam was a strong kid. Sam was a
yeah,
mentally tough kid. He was strong. He physically, I mean, like you said, a
worked
boxer,
really hard. Yeah,
worked hard. I mean, dude, talking about his job, he did one of the craziest. I mean, he was chopping down trees, going
yeah,
crazy, pictures of flowers. Like, man was happy with what he's doing. It's just, when you don't talk about certain things, and you don't talk about like what's going on in your life, and that's why I'm such a proponent of, if you have things going on, right? One of my good friends, he was talking about his job, and he's like, "Do you think therapy would work?" And I said,
mm,
"Therapy will work for anyone. It doesn't matter if
yeah,
it's for work, your relationship, even if you don't feel like you need it. Like,
yeah,
just having that third party to listen and to understand, uh, like, to give you advice, because they are not part of the situation. Like, it's one thing
right,
where it's like like if you're talking to somebody about a job, right? A coworker about your job, they're in the same boat as you. It's like, well, like, you'll give you some nonsense advice. I hate to say it like that, but therapists are a third party, and they'll give you advice for something that you might not think about. And and I'm an advocate for it. I use it. Obviously, I go to therapy every once in a while. It's definitely something that I highly recommend to everyone, because you break your arm, right? You go to the hospital, you fix it
Right.
up. So why not do that for your mental health? So
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, and I want to talk about how you grew up with mental health, how you grew up learning about mental health and stuff. But yeah, before we get to that, I like 2 or 3 years ago now, I went through a few months of just really, really intense anxiety and depression,
Mhm.
and really like hand on the ground. My chest just felt like 1 trillion pounds. Like I couldn't stand up, like almost in tears of just like, why am I feeling this way? I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was going on.
Right.
And my sisters had gone through some of this stuff before, and so I leaned on my sisters, and she gave me uh the steps to how to start feeling better, right? And it was always challenging. I tried meditation, and that helped a little bit, right? It was one little tick up, and okay, that helped. And then I went to see a therapist. And the thing about therapy is I thought I would have conversations and feel better afterwards. But what actually ended up happening was my therapist, uncovered questions that I wasn't asking and
Exactly.
that I needed to go find answers to. And so it did throw a little bit of a wrench in my life for a second of like, wait, I don't have these answers that I needed, that I didn't even know that I needed an answer to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and so I had to go out in the world and find the answers to these questions. And I wouldn't have known to ask myself those questions had I not gone to therapy and been recommended to take the SSRIs. I think mine was sertraline, and I
Mhm.
took that for like 2 years. And I mean, I was nervous at first to start taking the SSRIs and stuff, and I didn't want to get addicted to anything or to have like another pill to take and stuff. And but when I went to the doctor and I was like, yeah, trying not to take it, trying not to take it. And he's like, if you're not, 5, 6, 7 of the days out of the week and you're feeling this way, he's like,
Yeah.
you'll be able to get back to your life. This is to help you get back to your life, learn the things you need to learn so that when you're not on the SSRIs, which I'm not on anymore, you're still able to take care of your mental health and be aware of your mental health. And
Exactly.
yeah, and just back to that when we're talking about like suicidal thoughts, I always thought of suicidal thoughts as like I want to hurt myself. As
Mhm.
you think that like I want to hurt myself. And while I was going through that, I had a moment, and it's not that you want to hurt yourself. It's that like I couldn't imagine continuing my life feeling like this forever. Like, and I'm gonna have to deal with this every single day. Like, there's no way. Like, I can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
I can barely stand up sometimes. I'm like, how am I supposed to, be 40 years old, 50 years old, and keep doing this forever?
Yeah.
And I think that fear starts to build in you. And and just like you said, having nobody to talk to and feeling like we need to hold our masculinity higher than our mental health is definitely something that our generation was raised that way. But I'm an open book. I've always been an open book. I can't keep a secret to save my life. So I go out and tell the world my stuff. And sometimes I feel like I said too much or I told too much about myself. But I talk about myself and my challenges and the things that I've dealt with so that hopefully somewhere along the way somebody hears it and says, I'm not alone. I'm also dealing with that same stuff. And I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only person dealing with it. And now I know I'm not. And just at least being able to provide somebody else that even if they don't want to talk about it themselves, at least I'm not alone. There are other people also struggling with these same things.
Absolutely. And it goes to show, man, like what once you start talking about certain things with certain people, like it doesn't matter like how old you are, how young you are, or I mean, there is going to be times where you're going to be down on yourself, and there's going to be times where you're going to hit that rock bottom feeling, and it's just like, how do you handle it? How do you handle the certain situations? Um, and it's funny, like, I mean, I was the same way. It started somewhere in senior year of high school where I had the
Mm.
same thing. It's anxiety, stress. I felt like I was having heart attacks, and
Yeah.
I went to the hospital a couple of times because I was like, I don't know. It's like I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And vitals would come back great, and then stuff like that. And then even the woman, the nurse was like, "Are you on any kind of medication or drugs. I'm like, no, I'm not on anything. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not even drinking. I'm not like I've stopped doing all that stuff. And she's like, it's not until, like you said, until I went to talk to somebody and they uncovered it and uncovered you're stressed out because you're trying to be this perfect person, which you're not. Yeah. It's like you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Still do to this day. I still put pressure on. Yeah, it gets to your brain. It's like, am I a failure? Am I failing people? Am I failing people that I love? And it's just that's what you uncover sometimes. And that again, like you said, you get questions that you need answers to, and that's the biggest thing. So
yeah, it's like I call it my Jiminy Cricket in my head. Yeah. And during that time, that Jiminy Cricket would not shut the heck up, and I was like, "Stop talking to me! Leave me alone! I'm just trying to live my life." Like,
just on it, and I want to live my life as much as possible, and you're not letting me live it.
Yeah. It just doesn't stop, and it's like this freaking recorder in your head that just keeps playing and playing, and that's where the SSRIs helped quiet that, so I could get back to thinking positively and taking care of my mental health. And so to leave this section as positive as we can note, the thing I learned from Sam is that we all need to pat ourselves on the back for just making it to today. I mean, even just getting to today is not a given, right? It's not guaranteed. And we say that as jokingly, or like, yeah, it's not guaranteed, but it really isn't for a lot of people. And it's a challenge to get to tomorrow for a lot of people. I think just having more gratitude in ourselves and appreciation in ourselves for fighting through the hard times to make it to today. I think I tried to now remind myself, good job, Nick, for just even making it to today. As dumb as that is, it really, we forget sometimes that life is challenging. My dad said in our podcast together that the first thing he does when he has a new problem that he has to overcome, first thing he says to himself is, life is hard. And he starts there, that life is hard, and just realizing that life is difficult, and we're all trying to make it through it together. What was one lesson that you took that you're going to try to enact in your life?
So one of the things that I did was just, like you said, to be thankful. Just like look at it half full instead of half empty. It's like we always get the woe is me thing. It's like, oh, I didn't get this, I didn't get that, I didn't get this. But you got to also think people don't have half the things that you have already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And I think that's the biggest thing is, like, once you start thanking God, or however you want to thank, it's just like you thank God, and it's like, man, some of us are like, what a piece of shit car, or what a piece of shit place I live in. It's like some people don't have either of those things, and they wish they had. So it's like when you start thanking for that stuff, you start looking at a positive attitude, like you said, and you notice that when you put that positive energy out there, life becomes more positive, life becomes more happy. And like your dad said, life is hard, but it's hard. It's going to get harder, or it will be harder if you're like, man, F this, work sucks, or like my relationship sucks, or my parents are not getting it, or stuff like that. It's going to get worse. So when you look at it half full, that's the biggest takeaway I got from not just what happened with us with Sam and our other friends. I mean, it's something you have to learn from just living, and just knowing that it's like, be grateful. And that's the biggest thing. Like you said, tomorrow's not given. So just be grateful for what you have. So
definitely.
It's funny because in culture, in our culture, and in like my religion, there is nothing called mental health. It's just like you're sad. You're just basically sad. And I could say it like that. It's just now nobody really talks about it. Nobody really brings it up. And I think that's the funny part. It's not until I talked to actually my priest, he who's like more of like closer to my age and everything. He's like, bro, you need to go to therapy. You need to actually go to therapy. I'm here just for like spiritual. Like, it sounds like you have more problems than spiritual. And it's like you have to go talk to somebody. And that's the biggest thing, is like, that was the first time religiously somebody was like, go talk to somebody. And he's a big part of why my mental health has been great. I mean, knock on wood, for a little bit now. and hopefully
You're right. It's always an ebbs and flows, right?
flows. But like right now we're good and everything's good. So I think religiously and culturally it sucks because like some cultures look at it as like, and that's just being sad. Like you're not trying to be better, or like you're not trying to get yourself out of it. You just want to continue to be sad. And that's hurtful. And sometimes it pains a lot of people, and it pains a lot of people to see in our culture, they are just never happy. And because they're just not trying to find a better way to handle their stress or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you think of staying positive, or keeping the negative out of your head and having a positive outlook on life? How do you do that in your life?
So I mean, I stick with obviously the religious stuff. I pray and everything like that, but I try to take a deep breath. I try to remember all the good things that I have. I have a good relationship. I have a great job. I have good friends. I try my best to not let that negative thinking come into my mind, and obviously it does. I mean, I can't lie, it obviously does, but you just got to push back. I mean, the fight in you will come if you are willing to fight. And I'm not saying that in the wrong way, because sometimes it gets overwhelming, and then sometimes you just need to talk to somebody. And sometimes the best thing to do is talk to the people closest to you. Like for you, it could be your wife, it could be your parents, it could be your sisters. For me, it's the same thing. My girlfriend, my friends, my parents, and that's the thing, is just talk it. You gotta be man enough to be like, I'm ready to talk about this. And that's what I try my best to keep the negative thoughts out, and hopefully it continues to work. So,
yeah, right. Well, yeah, I learned after all of that protecting my mental health is so important. I have all these post-it notes all over my office of like positive things. Your wife loves you. Today's gonna be a good day.
Exactly.
One of the quotes that's been hitting me hard lately is, suffering ceases to be suffering once that suffering is given meaning.
Exactly.
And that goes back to this podcast of like, I want to talk about these hard topics and talk about how to stay positive and talk about mental health and bring these things to light, because everybody's dealing with them. And the only way for all of this suffering, for all of these people going through all this suffering, including us, everybody else, Sam, Rob, maybe this can be, or to have some meaning. I mean, like, and not let it just go to the wayside and we forget about it, but put some meaning to it, and that, we can continue to be better people in honor of them, right? And try to continue to positively affect the lives of others in honor of them, and ask our friends, hey, how's your mental health doing today, in honor of them, right? And I hope to take those lessons with us the rest of our lives.
100%. And I believe that. And that's the biggest thing. The biggest takeaway, if anything, from this podcast is think about all the people in your lives and how they rely on you too. And if you rely on them, they rely on you. Just check in on them. Just, hey, what's up? What's going down? Like, sometimes we're stubborn and we say, I'll get to it tomorrow, or I'll get to it next week. But tomorrow's not given. And today reach out and see what your buddy's doing, what your family's doing, and go from there.
Yeah, I love that. So to close us out for today, what's a quote or phrase we can leave our audience with that you use to stay positive?
Obviously, yeah, my biggest quote is, in the eye of success, failure will always come. So in one of the things that I've learned is to stay positive during those failures, like you said, like in the times of like when you feel like you're hopeless or there's nothing going right. It's just the storm before the rainbow. So I know I'm using a lot of cliches, but it's true. Once you learn from the mistakes and you look back and you're like, I don't want to go back there anymore, your successes will continue to grow, because you learn from the mistakes that you made. You learn from the situations that you were put in. So you stay positive in those rough times, because good times are coming. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Michael Shanoudi, this was an awesome podcast. I really appreciate you coming on, opening up, and talking about everything. Tell us one more time, where we can find you, what your next project is, what you're doing, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So Four Corners Radio, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. our next project. We're going to keep doing the live interviews on once a month basis at Anchor Bar in Leesburg. Follow us for our live broadcasts, everything like that. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just find Michael Shanoudi and you'll find everything you want for Four Corners, as well as I'll keep posting Nick's stuff. So if you want to keep seeing that, we'll definitely help each other out. So yeah, just
awesome.
like, download, and subscribe both of our shows. So
love it. And do you have a prediction for March Madness before we end?
Hey, listen, my pick, I told people this is a eerie feeling. It's a Duke year again. So if
Duke
you really
year again.
Duke year again. This is the type of years that Duke wins it all, and that's what I'm saying. Everybody wants to pick UConn because they're like the '98 Bulls and they have all these talents, but for some reason, those Dukes, if they keep going, the Blue Devils, they'll find a way somehow.
Love it. Cool. Shanoudi, have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for getting on, spending time with us today, and keep doing your best.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick.